Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to this fourth episode of the Remarketing Expert Track. My name is Johan Verbois, founder of 5S Consulting, and your host today as remarketing expert for Fleet Europe. The Remarketing Expert Track was kicked off with a podcast with Wolfgang Reinhold, chairman of CARA, a few weeks ago. And in the meantime, we had various initiatives. So we had to look at the market and the residual values in July, and in August we looked at remarketing as a process. Now today we will focus on the future of used cars. Before I do this, I would like to thank the organizers, Fleet Europe and CARA, and of course our sponsors. Without them, this would not have been possible to do. Now, we will end this remarketing track next week, where we'll have another podcast with CARA and some of their board members who will zoom into some of the things we've seen the last weeks. So keep an eye on the LinkedIn channel as well. The last podcast had more than 2,500 views, so I'm sure you're looking forward to the next one as well. Now, what will we do today? Well, we will kick off by taking a look at an importer who changed their used car strategy to make it future-proof. And I think this is a good sign on how you can change your used car business. Followed by Sebastian Fuchs, who will share the 5 key trends, to close off with Andy Shields, who will zoom in on one of those 5. As last time, please feel free to use the chat function to ask any question at all time, which we will handle at the end. So without any further ado, I would like to hand over the screen to the strategic planning manager at Ieteren. Now, being importer in Belgium of the VW groups is only one of many activities of the group. I'm sure you can explain it better than me. Radu, the screen is yours.
Thank you, and welcome everyone. My name is Nicodim, Managing Director of MyWay Pro. So MyWay Pro is the youngest startup launched by Ieteren Group, the Belgian importer for Volkswagen, Audi, Skoda brands. And I'm actually very excited to be able to present to you today. I'll be covering 2 topics. First, I'll start with giving you some market insights, some high-level description of what we have seen in the market before we started defining our future strategy. And then I'll explain to you a bit how we've been translating these insights into concrete strategic implications for us as an importer, as a group. So that will be a bit the 2 parts of my presentation. To start off, what we did before starting this whole strategic thinking, we've had a deep look at the market to see what could be the market dynamic in which we are present, so the used car market. And we observed 4 important things. First of all, we see that the used car market in Belgium is quite significant in terms of value potential. We're talking about 4.5 billion euros in revenue, 380 million euros in profit, which is quite significant. So it's a clear message for us as a group, as an importer, that we should be very strategically active in this market. Secondly, very important point is that this market, so where used cars, is much more resilient than the new car market. And Ieteren, as a traditional player in the new car market leader in Belgium, we're very active in the new car world, and we really see the used car business as a very strategic complement to that, to de-risk a bit our business. So we want to be as strong in the used car market as we want to be in the new car, be able to complement and de-risk the revenue pool that we currently have. Third point is that Belgium, traditionally speaking, and I'm sure that all of you know that, it's a country with a very strong new car penetration. So the used car to new car ratio is quite low in Belgium compared to other countries, and that's mainly because Belgium is it's a country with a very strong car policy. However, we expect this to increase in the future. So we expect the penetration of used cars compared to new cars to grow at a rate of average 1.6% per year, driven by 1, regulatory changes, so a more harsh approach towards company cars, and now accelerated by the current sanitary crisis that we've all seen, where customers that have been looking to buy or were expecting to buy a new car, due to either the price difference or the unavailability of the product in new cars, they are now reorienting themselves toward the new car world. And the fourth and last important point is that we see a lot of competitors, a lot of new players emerging in this market, specifically on used cars, which are actually trying to capture a strategic position in the market and capture a part of this value pool of the 380 million euro of profit that we see. And who are they? We see actually I'm talking here about used car retail business, right? So not on the wholesale side, but on the retail side, we see three big categories of players. We have online retailers, and online retailers, they are players that actually sell the car directly to the end customer, completely online without or with a very, very limited physical touch point. And these are players like Kazoo, Carvana in the US, Brum Brum Car in Italy, or CarNext, which you all know is a retail brand of LeasePlan. This is one group of players. So they sell completely online to the end customer. Then we also see a second group, which are aggregators. Aggregators are a bit different in the fact that they do not own the car, but they make the connection between the supplier and the end customer, and they take full ownership of the customer relationship. So they're actually making the sale online, but they are an intermediary. They don't own the car. However, they still bypass a bit the position of the traditional dealer in the fact that they connect companies like leasing companies, rental cars directly with the final consumer. And then there's a third big category, which is more C2C and C2B platforms like AutoScout or like Cash My Car from OLX, which is one of the biggest e-commerce websites in the world, which are also disintermediating a bit the position of a traditional used car dealer. So what I want to say with these trends is that we see new companies emerging in the market that pose quite a significant risk to the historic position of a traditional bricks used car dealership, and that's what we see on the right hand side on the stock returns. What we see here is we've compared the stock returns of the market, which is here explained by S&P 500 index, with the stock returns of the industry as a whole, the automotive industry as a whole, which we've seen is a bit underperforming the market. But then the most important point is when looking exactly at the dealers, at the traditional dealerships, we see that these are under increasing pressure, with stock returns significantly underperforming the market across the past 5 years. So that put us in a position as importer to think at a strategic level, how can we now in the future support our dealers? How can we reinforce them to be able to excel at what they do? And that's the retail sales of used cars. And that's now what I want to present to you is how we translated these insights into concrete implications for Ieteren. Before starting, we actually went out and asked customers when they would consider buying their new their next used cars, through which channel would they do that? And the answers that I'm going to share with you were for us a bit shocking, in the fact that we see the role of a traditional dealership. So that's the first two lines that you see here on the slide. They are still considered as very important. So customers are still strongly considering buying their car either through a specialized independent used car dealer or an official brand, with the next one in line being C2C, so buying the car from another private individual, with online channels. So meaning the last point is customer is ready to buy the car completely online. Only 16% of customers today are ready to consider this. And this is in Belgium. So probably other European countries are a bit more advanced and customers are a bit more open towards digital. But in Belgium, we see that customers are still reluctant to close the deal completely online. Moving forward on, I will not spend a lot of time in it, but I just want to share with you some couple of key facts, what we observed across the customer journey. So we talk really from a customer perspective. The moment he starts looking for a car, so pre-sale, sale is the moment when he converts, when he closes a deal, and after sale is everything that's servicing and retention. And what we see is that in majority of cases in retail, the journey starts online. More than 80% of customers, they first start online. And moreover, the customers at that point, they don't know exactly what type of product they need. So this is the best moment for OEMs, for importers, or for leasing companies through digital marketing to steer the customers towards their product, because the customer is uncertain at the beginning and they start online. So it's an ideal moment of truth to steer the product that you have to promote. But then in the next step, we see that in used car purchasing, the customers, 79% of buyers, they want to do a test drive. So they want to see the car physically before closing the deal. And why is that? Because first, the used car buyer is typically a budget buyer, and the investment for them is quite important. And the emotional connection with the car is still very important. So they want to be able to touch the car, to see the car before closing the deal. What we see is also less than 1% completely close the deal online, which could be also due to the lack of availability of companies that sell online. But also when we look at how many customers are considering buying online in the future, we see that it's only 25%. So that means that there's a huge part of the market in Belgium, 75% of customers, that are not ready to close the deal completely online. In servicing, and that's one last point I want to share with you, what we observe in servicing is that more than half of buyers, they do not return to the dealer for after sale, which is also a huge loss opportunity for traditional dealership. It means that one out of two customers that buy a car from the dealer, they will do after sale and maintenance at another independent provider. And why is that? One reason is the dealership is too far, or the traditional dealership is too expensive, and we have cheaper options. That's a bit a part of market insights. Now I want to present to you how we translated this into our vision for the future as importer level. And for that, we have three fundamental beliefs, actually. Three fundamental beliefs. One, first, being we believe that the future used car world will be a world where online and offline channels will seamlessly integrate. We will not talk about complete online journeys and will not talk about complete offline journeys, but both need to be a happy marriage between the two. That's our first belief. The second belief is that the role of the dealer in our vision will remain crucial. Customers will still go to the dealer, and the dealer will still maintain his contact with the customer. He will have the ownership of the customer relationship. And our third fundamental belief is that the dealers, in the traditional way they have been doing business across the past 5 to 10 years, they will not be able to survive and compete with these new emerging players. So we believe they will remain important, but we believe that they need to be equipped, they need to adapt the way they do business, need to be equipped with the right technologies and the right partners in order to succeed. Now, which are these technologies and which are these partners? I think Sebastian and Andy will give you more explanation about that. I will just quickly explain you how we approach this. So based on those three fundamental beliefs, we developed a strategy which is around the dealer. So it's really a dealer-centric strategy where we, as an importer, we're looking at which elements across the value chain of a used car the dealerships do well, which is really their core strengths, and which elements are important but are not strong enough today at the dealership side. And what we are trying to do is to provide the right products and the right services to support our dealer network to do better what they do best. And that's really like closing sales and selling to the end customer. And what are we doing then very concretely to support our dealers? First, it's the sourcing part, and sourcing is all about finding the right product that you can sell to the right market. And there, Ieteren as importer has launched the newest startup, which is MyWay Pro. It's a startup which I'm very proud to be the managing director of. And our role is really to ensure the right supply to the dealership network. So MyWay Pro is a complete digital B2B sales platform where we connect with partners at supply side, with leasing companies, rental cars, etc. We import the cars in Belgium and we provide them to our dealership network, but we don't stop there. We also do part of remarketing activities. So it means we don't only bring the product to the dealer, but we also make sure that the car is in a B2C ready state. So we are talking here about reconditioning, we're talking about 360-degree pictures, and we're talking about deliveries to the dealership. So the dealer actually has the product in the right state to be able to be sold to the end customer. That's the first building block. The second building block is now that the car is at the dealer, how are we going to launch it? How are we going to generate leads and make sure that the car is sold? And that's where MyWay comes into play. And MyWay is the online retail sales channel of the Ieteren Group. And here, our only ambition is to generate leads to make sure that the customers come into the dealership. And then it's up to the dealer actually to convert the sale. So at this point, we have provided the dealer the right product for his market, and we have provided him the lead in his showroom. So the role of the dealer is actually to convert the sale and to make sure the customer is happy. Now, the last piece of the puzzle is actually Leasy, which is also a quite interesting case, a startup that has been launched by Ieteren one year ago. And Leasy is an online used car leasing platform. And here we are talking about end-to-end online journey. And for us, there is a key strategic difference between online sales of used cars and online leasing of used cars. On online sales, we're talking about the one-off investment for the customer that's quite significant, 20,000 euro, 15,000 euros, with a strong emotional connection. On the leasing side, the emotional link is less important. Here, we're talking more about convenience, fast service, and fast availability of cars. So what we are doing on the leasing side, we are going that extra step, and we are doing the deal completely online, which is the role of Leasy. And here's where you see that this whole ecosystem is self-reinforcing actually, because every car sold through Leasy, every car leased online, locks the customer in the after-sale network of the group. So although the car is leased online, the customer is there in the ecosystem and he will go to after-sale in an official dealership network. Leasy is also used as an alternative sales channel for our dealership network. So now they have MyWay to sell the cars to the end customer, and in parallel they have Leasy as an alternative sales channel to be able to lease the car to a customer. So we increase the stock rotation in this way. Now, I will finish by just introducing to you MyWay Pro, which I mentioned is the youngest startup of the group. It's a company we've launched this year in June, together with Fuchs Automotive, so with the help of Sebastian. And what is it? It's actually it's a completely digital platform where we make the link between supply side and demand side. So we are in contact with partners such as OEMs, rentals, importers, large fleet and leasing companies, and mobility providers. And for them, we are providing an additional sales channel. So we open the door for them towards this whole Ieteren ecosystem that I mentioned before. And then at demand side, we're providing cars to franchise dealers, we're providing cars to independent used car dealers, and we're selling cars towards e-commerce websites such as Leasing. And our company is built on 4 fundamental pillars. First pillar is a complete integrated sales platform. So everything happens online. The dealer has only one single platform where everything happens. Purchasing a car, researching a car, having damage inspections, pictures, etc. The second key pillar, which we believe will be crucial for the future, is data-driven geo-pricing and data-driven sourcing, which Andy Shields will give you a much more detailed explanation about that. But we believe that that's key in the future. So the more data and the more intelligence we have, the better we can be at finding the right product for the right market. Third key pillar is industrialized logistics and refurbishment. As I mentioned, what we want to do is to deliver the car to the dealer, but we want to deliver the car in a state that is ready to be sold B2C. So what we are doing is we have an industrialized site for refurbishment, pictures, damage inspections, everything happening on one side, so we can decrease the time to market and decrease the operational cost at the minimum. And the last important pillar is people. We have a professional team of used car buyers on one side, and used car buyers, they are the contacts towards our supply partners, so OEMs, car rentals, importers. And we have a team of professional used car sellers who have a network of clients across at the moment 4 key European countries: Belgium, Netherlands, France, and Germany. And in this way, we're trying to bring to reinvent the way that used car remarketing is being done. As I mentioned, we've launched officially in June, so we are open for business. If you're interested either to learn more or to partner with us, please don't hesitate to reach out to me or discover us on the website mywaypro.be.
Okay, thanks for sharing so openly this strategy. It looks very impressive, I must say. Allow me to ask already one question, which I think it will certainly be probably perceived very good by dealers. However, I think there certainly have been some key challenges on implementing or on convincing. So how did this work and how did you overcome?
That's a very good question, and as you know, dealers are quite traditional in the way of doing business and quite pragmatic. So it's really an entrepreneurship world where how we approach this problem is really by showing them the value and not do the talk actually. So what we are doing is really launching pilots with specific dealers, showing them what's the value in our approach and in our ecosystem. And like this, we're going to convince them and onboard more and more companies. So indeed, it's a great question. It won't happen overnight, but I think that slowly they will realize that it's actually improving their business without much investment on their side. So I think it's a win-win for both.
Okay, great. Thanks. So thank you, and certainly stay here because there might be quite some questions at the end. Again, for everyone's information, you can always ask questions through the chat, and we'll try with the timing to leave enough time for that. So to end with the 3 experts around 11:45, and then afterwards still have some time for Q&A. So let me now turn to Sebastian Fuchs, who in the picture, not here, but the previous one, is really looking at 5 key trends and looking on the horizon on what to expect. So Sebastian, maybe you can share your view on the future here.
Okay. Well, thank you, Johan, and thank you, Radu, for that nice introduction, I guess, into what is really a timely topic and great work. And let me congratulate you first and foremost on what you've achieved in the last few months. It's really a great change, and being part of it made us at Fuchs Automotive very proud. So maybe 2 words about myself, Sebastian Fuchs, and the managing director for RMS and Manheim in Continental Europe for Fuchs Automotive. So everything that is around the wholesale side of the business, and also lately since June, since we went live in Germany with Manheim Express, heading up that business with the team there. So yeah, I've got the pleasure today to talk to you about the 5 key trends that we've identified. I'm just trying to move the slides. They're not progressing. There we go. Now it's moved. All right. So yeah, what we have got here on, as you can see, are really the 5 things that we do see from Fuchs Automotive in almost every customer today. And I'll tell you a bit more about them in detail, but just to go very quickly on a high level. So digitalization of sales for OEMs and dealers is really at the forefront, and the last 6 months with the Corona situation probably accelerated things quite a lot. Connected ecosystems is really probably a key one, and one that has become more and more emphasized, and you probably saw that in Radu's world quite well, where a leasing company, dealerships, but also an online platform get connected to basically work together, and we'll talk a bit about this a little bit more. Another one that we've actually seen is a self-service culture. We'll talk about that in a little second, but definitely users are becoming more self-sufficient, and there is less space for services at delivery, or that you basically have to go physically out. It's all about get it quickly done yourself. Omni-channel sales, that is for sure one of the secrets of successful companies, not only selling online but also selling offline, selling in various channels, wholesale, retail, and so on and so on. And then last but not least, data-driven decision making, and we have with Andy probably one of the experts in Europe on that, and he'll talk about that later, so I'll just touch on that very lightly. But obviously also in our world, that is something that is becoming more and more important, and data in itself as an asset and as the use of this data is really one of the things that all of our customers are looking at right now. So let's go a little bit further into the details here of what I'm meaning with digitalization of the sales. And I'm trying to move the slides again, but it's really resistant, Johan. There we go. Now it's moved. Sorry for that, but seems I have a very long line from here to probably wherever you are set, Johan. So yeah, what is happening with the OEM strategies, or in the car selling world? Really, we have on the one extreme, we've got companies like Tesla or Polestar, really new startups that start out with a legacy of a dealer network, and they're obviously trying to do this kind of go direct to the consumers. And then on the other side, we have traditional OEMs, actors, importers that have a dealer network. And then I'm really happy, Radu, you shared your insights there before. The reality of a lot of these players is that we're seeing actually a need for both. We're seeing an increased need to basically help OEMs and dealers to facilitate and work on the transaction of cars online and offline at the same time. They need to go hand in hand, and the experience needs to be connected. So from our perspective, we do help these things with all our services. So Modix, where we do the retail experience, where we're working with dealers and websites where customers can go and find cars, but also where we empower solutions such as the Autobörse in Germany that's run by Santander. And then on the wholesale side, where we're helping OEMs with brands such as RMS Automotive that builds the networks for the OEMs, and Manheim Express that helps dealers then to take the trade-ins and monetize those cars quicker. So really being able to do the piping and making sure that there's robust systems that can service those new strategies. That's what we're all about. And it is really not one strategy is the same as the other. So being agile and being able to kind of think what is your current situation is really one of the things that we do a lot talking, where we spend a lot of time with our customers on. So yeah, as I mentioned it before, connected ecosystems is really key. And just here sharing with you one example here from our two companies in Germany, Manheim Express and Modix, where the dealers that are using our Modix retail pages and the connected back offices can now actually send cars straight to the Manheim Express world as well, so that they can actually not only sell the cars one way to the retail customers, but they can at the same time, or at a certain data point, say the car is in for 45, 90 days, depending on which country you're in, can then push the car into a B2B auction with a click of a button, and just enrich a couple of data fields, and off you go. So that's the kind of like outflow scenario, but also on the inflow side. I mean, connecting with the various systems, be it a fleet management system, be it an inventory management system, is really becoming key, so that you can service the upstream, that you can basically get cars already published and promoted, be it retail or wholesale, way before they actually physically return. So really important to first of all identify like what is your ecosystem, who are the players in your ecosystem, and then make sure that you align them and you make them talk to each other. That is really a key enabler that we hear in a lot of our discussions with our customers. So self-service culture, I mentioned that before, and I brought you here two examples that are really about this. What is the key driver? The key driver of the self-service culture is time and efficiency. Now, more and more services become apparent that you can actually do them with a mobile phone. Like, if we look at our lives 5 years ago, probably a lot of us spent still times on iPads, maybe on laptops. If you think about your private life, where you do your interaction nowadays, whether it is booking a journey, whether it is doing your banking, all this has moved into a mobile phone, right? And as such, we need to adopt actually for our customers. And on the left-hand side here, you can see the Modix 360 product. And this might make me sound very old now, but when I started out in the industry, there were still photographers, professional photographers, sent to dealerships physically to take photos. And I do know there are actually some dealers that are still having that, right? But the technology has advanced, and it would be wrong to think like, hey, just taking pictures with the mobile phone is the right thing. No, because now comes the beauty of the speed of the times we're living in. It's actually not only taking the pictures, replacing the backdrop so the car is in a nice environment, making it a 360 spin is one of the next steps, so that the customer actually can turn the car and zoom in. Then adding hotspots of information, like if there is a special function or a special equipment on the car, making sure that the consumer can actually see this, so that online shopping experience becomes a really immersive experience, one that is enriched and really makes the customer want this car, right? And being able to do this in the palm of your hand is something that our dealers really appreciate. So that's a great product that the team on the Modix side has developed here. And if you think about where it came from, like somebody going physically taking a picture to like, hey, now you can do it in like 10 minutes and you're done, and you've got your car in a great way up there. So that's one That's one concept about self-service. But then on the other side, I've taken here a couple of screenshots from our Manheim Express app. And again, this is where dealers have the possibility to upload a car. And you know, coming back to the connected ecosystems, what we've done here for the German market, dealers can actually via a VIN lookup scan the VIN on the car or from a document, identify the car via the DAT VIN lookup, so get all the specification automatically pushed into the system, enrich the data with first registration, mileage, and so on and so on, and then basically publish the car to an auction with the pictures, as you can see here again, self-service walk around the car. Today it's still a service where the dealers are taking pictures and then marking the damages manually. Within Q4 of this year, we're going to launch also a technology based on artificial intelligence that will automatically, out of the pictures, identify scratches and dents. So actually take that work step away from the dealer as well. And then at the end of the process, before the dealer gets ready to upload the car to the auction, he actually gets a pricing proposal, and that pricing proposal we are getting from our partner on valuations, is the company Automotive. But they're not only giving us the valuation, they will give us, as of our next release, also the stock turns, comparable amount of cars on the market. So actually that a dealer has the possibility to upload a car and get it ready for auction and have the intelligence on how the car is actually in the market within 10 minutes. And then he can decide how long the car should go on the auction, whether it's 12, 24, 48 hours. Click of a button, the car is live and is being sold. A great example of how you, one, connect ecosystems, and two, make it self-service for the dealers. Really a great product, and we've seen really great uptake over the last few months on that. So, and yeah, then data to sell faster and the omni channels, if you remember. It is really important to understand that you first of all understand your market and also understand the products that you have. Surely certain cars are not fit for certain dealers to sell them, so it's probably better to B2B sell those cars into a trade environment and then leave those business for the dealers that are prepared to do this business. But at the same time, you need to understand what are these factors that are driving it: age, mileage, market demand, all these insights you need to gather and you need to get from your various systems. So actually, one of the things that we do see with a lot of our customers is data cubes, independent data cubes, where not only you collect data from one system, but you collect data from various systems, and you model this data into decision-making machines. And then with those decision-making machines, you fuel back to your systems, and you drive the decisions on the usage of the products that you have. So that's one big trend that we're seeing, and that gets spent a lot of time on, and it is probably one of the big differentiators going forward, to have that thinking when you do all of this. So if we come back to the 5 trends, digitalization, connected ecosystems, self-service, omni-channels, and then the data-driven decision-making, it is really important when you start out these first 4 points, that you have that last point of the data-driven decision-making in your concept, and that you embed it from the beginning, because then you can harvest the full power of your data. And that's really where I'm going to hand over then to Andy and leave him showing you one of various ways of how to do that. So thank you for listening in, and I hope you enjoyed a couple of our examples on those 5 key trends.
Thank you, Sebastian. If you allow me just also to ask, I don't know if you always agree, but I always ask one question before we move now. Despite, I think, those impressive amount of tools, availabilities, and opportunities, we see that not so many yet have created a real digital first strategy. So what do you believe are the main reasons for this? Is it lack of understanding, initiative, implementation issues? What do you think is a key challenge?
Yeah, I think there is not one answer to it, Johan. It's a very good question. I think, I use Radu as an example again. Sorry for that, Radu, but you know, the speed is one thing. We started discussing end of last year, so I think it was November time. We signed the contract in January and we were live in June this year. So, you know, being able to act nimble and work that fast, being empowered to have the decision making is one thing. I think there is also a lot of thinking happening in our customers, and they sometimes obviously need to tread very carefully on that move from the existing circumstances into that future state. And here we just see that actually with the Corona situation this year, it has accelerated. So we're seeing a lot more push towards digitalization, but as you can see, the example of Ieteren is an example of extreme speed. You know, when your organization is a bit bigger, has a bit more layers of decision making, it gets more complex, and it gets more complex also from the legacy systems. So it's a mixture of all these things. My estimation is by mid to end next year, we're going to see a lot of our customers and the players in the market having changed dramatically, because now the last 6 months have shown everybody it is actually possible, and the belief is much bigger than it was probably 12 months ago into digital solutions.
Thank you, Sebastian. Now, last but not least, and again, I just want to highlight, please ask any question that you have in those areas at any point of time during in the chat function. And we've asked Andy to zoom in on this last point, data-driven decision making, because despite the fact that this topic is already on conferences and in communications for quite a while, having had a few calls the last weeks, we can estimate that real implementation is only 10% to 15% of the total used car market, which basically is almost nothing, while everyone understands the key of data-driven decision making. So I think, Andy, you can probably convince a bit more people about this data-driven. So,
yeah. Thank you very much, Johan. Thanks very much, Sebastian, for your positioning as well. It was excellent. The aim of this conversation is really to go into data-driven decision making, easy to say, and really just give you a better view of what does this actually practically mean. Because we talk about it a lot, but what are the sort of data points and what are the things that we need to analyze to make better decisions? So if I move on, I think I have the Sebastian issue of my slides not swapping over too quickly. Let's try again. So firstly, what I'm going to do is take you through what Indicata does, and then secondly, I'll go into a little bit more detail about practical decision making, both in the areas of vehicle attractiveness and saleability, which Sebastian talked about, and also then from a retailer's point of view, developing pricing strategies, and then we'll move in, go to the Q&A piece after that. This is going to be a slow presentation. Okay, so if I quickly run through, basically what Indicata does is it extracts data on 9 million vehicle advertisements every single day, and we pull that from OEM websites, we pull that from classified websites, we pull that from franchise manufacturer websites and franchise dealer websites, and we bring this into the Indicata data set, and through a range of AI and data analytics techniques, we then develop a range of tools that we provide for car manufacturers, for leasing companies, rental companies, dealers, dealer groups, etc. Sebastian, Johan, I think it might be worthwhile if you take over the movement of slides, because I've got a very, very slow feedback and it feels,
we will.
okay.
Yeah, we'll do that.
So let's start with vehicle attractiveness and saleability. Do you want to change slide? So the first area that I want to talk about is market day supply. This is a measure of the vehicle's saleability. So if I take in this situation an example of a Ford Focus 5-door 1.6 TDI titanium reg 2017 at 60,000 miles, 60,000 kilometers on the clock. The first thing we'd look at is how many vehicles in the marketplace. And in this case, let's say there are 16 vehicles. Can you click? So let's say there was 45 vehicle in the last 45 days, a similar number of vehicles were sold. There were 16 vehicles of that same type sold in the marketplace. Then if you give a click, that would give us 45 days market day supply. Now that's fine. Let's say there was half that number of sales that was made. So if you give a click, then at the end of the day, if there's half that number of sales, you would see that the market day supply would increase to 90 days. It would take twice as long. It would take 90 days to clear the stock. And if at the end of the day, that then dropped further to only 4 vehicles sold in the previous 45 days, then we'll be at 180 days. So this vehicle is now looking very unsaleable because there is a high stock in the marketplace relative to the sales rate that's been going on. And from a dealer's point of view, but also from a remarketeer's point of view, this then defines what vehicle you should be stocking. And from that way, we look at it as a kind of traffic light system. So effectively, a vehicle that is under 60 days market day supply is in the green zone. That's fast moving stock. You can make good profits. You've got a high stock turn. Vehicles in the midpoint, then what you'll see is their average stock turn. You should buy them, but buy them right, buy them at the right price, and then make sure that you price them at the right price. And then when you move into 120 days plus, this is slow moving stock. This is the sort of stock that as a dealer you should be avoiding in terms of purchasing. And if we move on to the next slide, what I'll do is I'll illustrate through a case study that we had with a Dutch dealer group. This Dutch dealer has 12 outlets, 4 different franchises, and a single multi-franchise used car operation. And what we did was we looked at their purchasing of vehicles, and we looked at all the vehicles that they had been purchasing over the previous year. And when we identified the market day supply at the point of purchase, we found that if they had bought cars with under 60 days market day supply, then 81% of that stock would then sell very quickly. It would sell in less than 60 days. However, if we go on to the next piece, we look at vehicles that were bought with a market day supply at the point of purchase of 60 to 120 days. They still move through, but the risk of that vehicle aging actually went up threefold. And then when we analysed the vehicles that were over 120 days in terms of their market day supply, what we found was the majority of those vehicles then went on and aged and caused them aging and profitability problems. So we worked with this dealer group in its total sourcing. If you could jump on to the next slide. And we really got them to focus on primarily buying cars into stock, which were between 1 and 60 days in terms of their market day supply. And you can see on the right-hand side of the graph how that implementation then moved their stock turn up from about 3.7 to 5.6, and it was heading in the right direction all up to the point that unfortunately COVID took over the marketplace and things went in a different direction. But frankly, these guys were very grateful for the fact that we then put them in a great position in terms of their overall stock. Let's jump on to the next piece. So if we then look at the pricing strategy, and this is looking again from the perspective of how a dealer should move forward in terms of pricing their vehicles. What we know is that all stock depreciates. There is a depreciation curve that happens. Click. And again. Now, margins are thin, but at the point of purchase, then the margins may be okay. But again, if we click through, what we find that if the car is held over time, then effectively the opportunity for margin reduces. And then if it's held for an excessive period of time, then actually you move into a point where losses can be incurred. So if we then jump on to the next piece. So this is a case study that we did with a UK dealer group. They operate 50 franchise locations across the south of England. And we started looking, they had some profitability problems, they had some stock turn problems, and we started with a case study working around 3 of their Renault outlets. And we looked at the profitability that they made from the vehicles in terms of the length of time that they had them in stock. And for vehicles that were held for up to 60 days, they were making very good gross profits out of those vehicles. But as they held the vehicles for a longer period of time, what we saw is that erosion of the profitability of those vehicles and eventually turning into losses. Now, just to be clear in the definition of gross profit, it's the sales price less the purchase price less any refurbishment costs on those vehicles. So we're not kind of overloading this data set with interest costs and marketing costs and valeting. If they were overloaded, the losses would be seen to be far greater. So this is just the simple chassis profit of a vehicle. And then as we looked into the average age of the vehicles that they were selling, what we saw was that too many of the vehicles were being sold late on, and they weren't clearing them out earlier on, and therefore incurring losses when they finally did get rid of those vehicles. So we worked with this dealer in terms of its pricing strategy. Now let's take this concept that we have. It's market average price. So if you take, let's say, our Ford Focus that we analysed the market day supply on, well, we'd also work out what is the average price for that vehicle in the marketplace based on the 16 other cars that would be out there or more, depending on the sample size. And we'd call that market average price 100. Now, then in developing a pricing strategy for this particular dealer, it depends on circumstances, what they're trying to achieve. But we would basically get them to look for making maximum profits out of fresh stock that came in. So maybe price at 105 of the market average price, and then use price as a way of controlling the aging of the vehicle. So bit by bit over the life of the vehicle, keep re-evaluating the vehicle against the market, because the market moves constantly, but move it down against the market overall. Go to the next slide. We can then build in the concept of market day supply. So if they have a vehicle that is a very attractive piece of stock, a very low market day supply, then clearly that's one where they can take the opportunity of pricing much higher in the early days on that vehicle. But if at the other end of the spectrum, for whatever reason, they've taken into stock a vehicle with a very low market day supply, we'll start that car off low. It may be priced at a particular point, but at the end of the day, it's slow moving. You need to make that vehicle far more attractive to get the stock turn that you need to stop it from aging and then causing yourselves real problems. Go on to the next slide. So if we look at the gross profits of the 3 Renault branches, you can see that year on year they were languishing around the kind of 50,000 gross profit amongst the 3 branches. And then when we implemented the dynamic pricing strategy and the market day supply, we saw an immediate almost doubling of profitability, and that was driven by an increase of 70% in terms of volumes. We got 81% in terms of stock turn, and we immediately stopped this aging situation that they had. Now, there's a lot of thought process with people that actually by implementing this decay in terms of pricing, that basically what you're doing is you're going a race to the bottom. If we look at the next slide, what I see that show there is the average pricing of that group of 3 dealers in the marketplace. And you can see prior to us coming in, they've got a pricing level about 104%, but fairly unstable. They were not repricing and then suddenly repricing. Once we moved into at the end of April, the dynamic pricing, we did have a drop down in their price position as we cleared out the backlog of aging stock. But as a fresher stock came in and better stock came in, what we found was that they returned their average pricing point back to the 104, so 4% over the market average. And as a result, they got the stock turn, but they were also able to make significantly more profits than they were doing before. And fortunately, this dealer group now liked it. We actually ran a second pilot with their Honda operations, and then they bought into it across all 50 locations. So again, another way of looking how data-driven decision making practically can help the profitability of an organization. Jump onto the next slide. So in summary, data-driven decision making is proven to increase performance. Just getting a simple valuation of a vehicle, saying on average that car is worth 12,000 euros in the market, is insufficient. Its attractiveness and ongoing pricing strategy that is fundamental to profit improvement. And these sorts of retail techniques are also totally applicable to the remarketing, because at the end of the day, if retailers are thinking this way, remarketeers need to think in the same way and actually price their stock accordingly to the market day supply and the vehicle attractiveness and saleability. And back to you.
Thank you, Andy. Now, if this was not yet convincing that data-driven decision-making could be a good idea, then I'm not 100% sure what you or we still have to do. So thanks very much for the input already right now. I see we got X amount of questions here, which I'm going to have a look at. One of them is, Sebastian, maybe for you, is there any challenge throughout Europe, depending per region or country, that there is issues on connectivity that then impact on your tools, on, I don't know, strength of Wi-Fi or 4G or anything? Do you see there the differences, or?
No, I wouldn't see that. I think what we are realizing is that depending on which sector the customers are in, there's different stages of technology advancements, and the older your technology is, the less able are you to quickly integrate. I think this is something, you know, we call in the industry microservices, and microservices is one thing that really enables you to quickly connect and not having to touch your whole ecosystem every time. That's something that probably, you know, if I'd had to give a recommendation to people going out and looking for new suppliers, have a look for these kind of technologies. Make sure that you you don't buy into suppliers that, you know, don't support this, or at least have a roadmap to this. Yeah, I think that'd be the key thing. When you talk about internet connectivity and so on, in Europe, we're on a pretty good field here by now. I think we do monitor our all of our systems, and we keep track on response speeds, and we're talking milliseconds. We do track those response, and I think that's something, you know, to be also having in mind when you do build your online strategy. You need to monitor, and you need to make sure that the customer experience is not only from a design good, but also from a speed on all devices. And last but not least, probably also the fact that there was a long time where you would basically use resized or adaptable screens and cramp them into an app. From a user perspective, that is not ideal. Definitely you should, if you want to go down mobile, develop your own apps, even if there is a thinking that sometimes for your service you believe that a customer wouldn't download the app. But if you look at the modern concept of mobile phones, people are actually downloading apps for one single instance of buying a car, evaluating a car, selling a car. People do this because it doesn't take a lot of time, and once the app is used, it's automatically removed after a couple of weeks, so it doesn't have impact on the users. Something to probably keep in mind there.
Yeah. Okay. A question for Andy, as I think it comes up ongoingly, is some sites or some they change their stock ongoingly, or they take cars out and put cars again on. How do you filter them out, not to overdo the number of cars in supply, actually?
Yeah, it's a really good question, and it's one of the challenges of our side of the industry. So effectively, we keep a track of every single vehicle that's been advertised, and we have a range of techniques. So we will look at a vehicle when it's taken down from a website. That's fine, it will be taken down. Theoretically, it will be classified as a sale, and probably instantaneously it will be. But if that vehicle then reappears on another website, appears at another dealership within a short period of time, we've got a range of techniques, just looking at the make, model, mileage, etc., to identify. But we even go down to our AI in terms of the photography, where not only, I mean, we can recognise not just the vehicle, but with our image technology, we can actually recognise the vehicle by the position of the fog lights and whether it's a 19 model year or an 18 model year. So we use all those techniques to then go in and basically on a daily basis re-cleanse the whole data set to then come back and then not over egg what the market is doing just because a dealer is moving a car from A to B or a different site, or it's been traded from one place to another.
Okay, thanks, Eddie. I'm just going to take two other questions so that we are probably staying within an hour or maybe just go over. Regarding implementation at importer level, for you, I'll do a question on what was actually, if you would like to share, one of the key objectives of starting with it, because I think we can all imagine it can be supporting dealers in their franchise profitability. It can be because you want to create another sales channel almost for your maybe own vehicles or your ex-lease or captive lease. What, if you can share, what were the key objectives, one of the key things why to do what you currently have done?
To launch the new product, My Way Pro on the market, you mean? That's a very good question, and there are multiple reasons, multiple objectives why we did it. First of all, is to improve the used car to new car ratio at importer level. As I mentioned, Ieteren historically it's been market leader in Belgium in new car sales. However, I think today we are at a ratio of 0.2, so that means for every 10 new cars overall, we are selling 2 used cars. And that's one of the key objectives, is to increase that ratio, to increase the penetration of used cars in our total portfolio. That's one. The second one is also now with the electrification of vehicles, we expect that to have a strong impact in after-sale revenues, right? Because EVs will gradually decrease the number of entries in our after-sales. And we're also looking at used cars as a perfect complementary to match that gap, the revenue that we'll have from electrification. So we strongly believe that if we increase our used car penetration, not only there are profit pool on used cars to be gained, but there's also a significant piece in after-sale that can compensate the loss of revenues due to electrification. And those are the two main objectives why we are doing this. Yeah.
Okay, thanks. The last question, Sebastian, will probably be addressing to you. What about movies and everything? Because I think a few years ago there was a lot going on about video is the new thing that was launched. I think implementation of it we haven't seen completely coming true actually. What's your take on that or your view?
Yeah, I think video is in the retail space, it will definitely play its role over the years, and with 5G becoming more widely known on the mobile devices, I think the issue why video hasn't moved on was also the mobile telecommunication industry that has widely started to slow down data consumption. Now with wider technology, 5G, and more data being possible, hopefully this goes away in the future. I think there is also almost like an interim. If you think about the 360 self-spin and all that kind of stuff, where you're not really having a video, but you can actually interact with the car. And also the video technologies that were out there over the last years, they probably take a lot of time to prepare for dealers. So it probably was difficult to produce and keep up a certain level for the return. This is back to, all our lives is about speed and convenience, and the quicker these things go, the easier it will be. So I think my guess would be that we're probably going to see some video going forward, but I think we'll see it more used probably in an environment like we do today, in the customer engagement, like video chats and video consultations, versus a actual video of a product, which was in the past the trend. But probably also happy to listen to what Radu and Andy have to say from their sides on these things.
Any thoughts from you, Andy?
Yeah, from my side, I think it's interesting. Back in my consulting days, I was involved in a company that was involved in automotive video. I think it's interesting if I then look at the marketplace now. I agree with Sebastian. One thing that hasn't necessarily got a high amount of traction is on, let's say, classified ads, etc., having video. It's there in a number of places, but it doesn't seem to add significant amounts of value or in terms of conversion rates. What's interesting for me is if you look at organizations like See It Now, where they use video from a slightly different perspective. They use video when they get, as a kind of lead generator, when they have the first engagement, or dealership has the first engagement with a customer from a telephone call in, etc. There's this real imperative in that situation to bring them into the showroom. And the guys that See It Now, who I know quite well, are very, very good at then producing systems that allows a salesman to then produce a very specific video walk around for a customer who may have inquired on a particular car, and sending it to that customer, and the conversion rate that they then get of bringing people into the showroom, it kind of trebles the conversion rate overall. I don't work for them and they're not a client of mine and whatever, but it has been one area of the marketplace where I've seen some real traction in the use of video going forward, and it's something that I think most people in the marketplace should now consider from at least a dealer perspective.
Okay, Andy, thanks. I think we're gonna leave it here. We just have gone over just over an hour. Most of the people are still on, so that's okay. I just want to say three last things. One is keep your eyes open for the channel in Fleet Europe and also on the LinkedIn channel for the closing podcast that will probably be broadcasted next week with support of CARA. Again, thanks to the sponsors. We had one of them in today. Sebastian, thanks specifically. And then also keep your eyes focused on Fleet Europe. There will be a virtual remarketing forum on the 18th of November, which will be the second day of the Fleet Europe Summit this year. So thanks, Radu, Sebastian, Andy. Thanks to all people attending, and see you in another episode probably. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Bye-bye.
Okay.